Good morning. My name is Danelle Hardin. As you guys know, I am the sister of Ronald Green, who was killed by your men, the Louisiana State Police troopers. I'm here to request that you guys put this increase in wages on hold, because right now there's a big gap between the community and your law enforcement. So, since my brother was killed, May 10th of 2019, as you guys know, yesterday made 4 years, and we're still fighting for accountability, transparency, to get these men incarcerated and charged for the crimes that they committed that night. Okay? 4 years now, and you're trying to entice these applicants by giving them more money. More money, that's not the answer, you know. That is not the answer to getting good candidates, you know. Look at Carl Cavalier. He was fired. He wasn't even on the scene. And you guys here, Louisiana State Commission approved his termination, correct?
No, ma'am. That matter never came to us for a determination.
Okay, but couldn't you guys have, you guys could have jumped in?
No, ma'am.
No?
We don't have the power to jump in. The only thing we have the power to do is if there is an appeal that is brought to us, we have the power to review the action and make a determination of whether we agree or disagree with the action. But if the appeal never comes to us, we don't have the power to do anything.
Okay, but the appeal has came to you guys, and he has yet.
The appeal.
It's been postponed.
The appeal was not postponed by us. There was a matter in federal court that's beyond our jurisdiction, and my appreciation is that the matter was settled in federal court. And at that
point, and
but
why would Louisiana State Police make a settlement on a situation where he was just being honest and calling out his colleagues?
We don't have the authority to deal with that civil matter that was going on in federal court. The only thing we have the power to do, if and when an appeal comes to us, is to rule on that. But because of the settlement that happened in federal court, the appeal never got to us for a determination. So we have.
I've been here a couple of times, and I know one time it was postponed. I know a couple of times it's been postponed. He has never had his chance to appeal this case.
Well, there was a previous postponement of one of the hearings on one of the matters that were before us, but it was because there were things that need to happen so they could be brought. But before it came back to us for a determination on the matter, there was a federal lawsuit that was pending, and there was a resolution of that federal lawsuit which ended any authority that we had because of an agreement between the parties. Now, and we don't have authority over that agreement. If there was a settlement within the purview of some pending litigation before us, we would have an issue with having to approve or disapprove that, but that never came to us for approval or disapproval. That was all done in federal court. So we didn't have that authority.
Okay. Well, as an outsider looking in, it just appears that from the Louisiana superintendent, the Louisiana State Police Commission, Governor Edwards, you guys are protecting your men, whether they're right, wrong. I mean, it seems like you're protecting the murderers, the guys that are out here shooting and killing us. You know, since Ronald was killed, I can't name how many people have gotten shot, unarmed, you know. It's continuing to happen. Every other, I think it was like, what, last month, 3 people got shot. Here in Louisiana. You know? They're dying, we're dying, and we're tired of dying. But I'm trying to understand why an increase in pay. Don't you think, like, if the community had some trust and saw things getting better here in the state of Louisiana, that they'll be flocking to you guys? trying to be part of the good team, you know, the good squad. I don't know.
Let me just say this, and Ms. Hardin, I know you're dealing with a lot, and I certainly do not envy the position that you or your family or anyone else who's lost one of their loved ones. But there are a lot of competing issues that go with the question of whether any entity can attract good people. Nobody on this commission, I think I can speak for everybody, wants to reward bad behavior. Nobody wants to do that.
But if you're putting them on leave instead of firing them,
well,
then that's, to me, that's protecting the bad guys.
This commission can't fire anybody. The only thing
But you guys have an influence. You can influence the superintendent.
There's certain it's a complex situation. There's certain constitutional ability under the state constitution, things that we can do, and there's certain things we can't do. Certainly when a matter comes to us, when the alleged aggrieved trooper comes to us, we can review it and say that discipline was appropriate or we disagree with the discipline. But we can't reach out and grab a trooper and say, we want that trooper fired. We don't have that ability. That may be a good or maybe a bad thing. I'm not going to cast judgment on that. I just want you to understand where our authority lies. We don't have the ability to go say, that's a bad trooper, he needs to be gone. We can't do that. There has to be action by the agency, and I'm not saying the agency is not taking appropriate action, but there has to be action by the agency, and then it comes to us.
So you mean to tell me, if you guys see something that isn't right, collectively or individually, you guys don't get together and say, you know what, we need to come together, get with Edwards, John Bell Edwards, whomever, and try to make things right. I mean, it's kind of like you're saying, well, there's a dotted line and we got to stay in this box. And if we see somebody that's about to get hit or shot, we just got to let it happen.
No, ma'am. And I know you're not intentionally misconstruing what I'm trying to explain.
No, but that's what it seems like.
But let me try to explain.
Okay.
And I appreciate it. But no, that's not what I'm saying. Is that we can turn a blind eye to it or that we ignore it. There are pressures that you can put. There's pressures that we can put on individuals to try to do the right thing, but there's certain legal limitations on what our authority is. I'm speaking of what our authority is. Certainly we can talk about what's wrong. We can talk about ways of improving the situation. We do that virtually every day. Not literally, but we do that all the time. We talk about how it is we can try to improve state police and things that need to change and that things that need to be done better and in different ways. Certainly we have that ability and exercise that ability to talk about those things. But a minute ago I was talking about what our full authority is, what we have the power to do. And there's a difference between what power we have and what ability we might have to try to influence in the right direction.
Okay. But even if, okay, so you're saying powers and abilities, but you guys have the ability to make some change. You know, even if you don't have the power and you guys see something in the Constitution that needs to be amended and updated, I mean, can't you guys get with the state representatives or, you know, to say, certainly, hey, certainly, guys are getting away with this clause. Certainly. Can we push for change on that? Because guess what? The bad guys are walking, going home and retiring, like Colonel Kevin Reeves, Doug Kane. I mean, all these guys have walked away from my brother's murder. They're retired, and here it is. You got the good cop, Carl Cavalier, that's out here trying to get someone to believe in him, and so he can make money. I mean, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me, other than you have the power, but this is what we're able to do. Well, like, it's limited power.
Yeah, what I'm trying to tell you is that there are certain limitations to our power. To amend the Constitution in Louisiana, as in every other state, there is a process. It's got to go through the legislature. It's got to be voted on by the people of Louisiana. There are ways to amend our Constitution, but unless and until our power from our constitutional grant is changed, there are certain things we don't have the power to do. We can try to influence things, and we do try to influence things positively, but there are certain limitations, and that's a misconception about what this commission can do from its grant of power by the Constitution and by its legislative grant of power. But we try to do and try to work with state police to effectuate change for the better. And to the extent we have the authority to implement things, we do our best to try to implement those things. But there are some limitations on it. You know, as chairman of this commission, I'd love to see the commission have more power from the Constitution, but unfortunately I can't make that call. I wish I could. Right now there are certain limitations, and within those limitations we are trying to do what we can to the extent we have authority. In fact, we're going to, I hope, pass a rule change today that says when people do whistleblower acts that nobody can retaliate against them. That's one of the things that's on the agenda today. We have the power to pass that kind of rule, and we're going to, I would hope, pass that rule today. I don't want to speak for the rest of the commissioners, but there are things we can do and certain things we just don't have the constitutional authority to do, unfortunately.
Well, just know that every time I travel from Florida back and forth, my belief is, my vision is, I'd like to reimagine public safety. You know, here in Louisiana, you guys see I'm here by myself. I have but you know, I have family members that are too afraid, or you know, they don't want to sacrifice their careers and their position in public to stand with the Ronald Green family because they don't want to get, you know, misunderstood. But I just like to reimagine public safety where my little cousins and friends and family, they're just not afraid, you know, when they see the state troopers pull up behind them. Or, you know, I had an officer, he just retired 30 years. He says, you know, Dee, he says, I too get a little freaked out if a cop pulls up behind me. He's been on the force 30 years, local police officer. And I'm like, why? He says, I just do. He's a black man. But, you know, again, somehow we got to close this gap and kind of bring the community together to say, you know what, you know, we're not all bad apples. You know, last year when Kenny Van Buren, when his brother got shot by a sheriff officer, again, you know, my heart goes out to him. Anybody that gets killed, period. But when you get killed in the hands of law enforcement that are out here to protect and serve our communities, that's a problem. And it's happening every other week here in Louisiana, or maybe every 2 weeks. So it's like, how can we close that gap? You know, put the money on hold, okay? Put the money on hold for now, but let's clean up and let's make our wrongs right.
We certainly have to make any wrongs right, and we certainly have to clean up to the extent that we can and should. Both to the extent we have authority to do so, we will enforce that. To the extent we don't have authority to do it, we'll encourage it.
But
I don't, and we haven't gotten to that agenda item yet. I don't know that putting the money on hold is necessarily a necessary component to that. But we're going to debate that when we get to that particular issue.
But why do you think it's needed? I mean, they're already making
There are lots of things that are needed to help any agency, any company, run a business. There's lots of things that factor into how you get good people to come. Pay is one of them. Working conditions is another. Management from the top is another. All of those things have to come together. Does that mean just because you are tackling them all at the same time that that's a bad thing? I don't know that it is. Right now, I think we're tackling all of those things at the same time, as opposed to we can't do one while we're trying to do the others. Is my view of how we look at this. And Ms. Hardin, I know you drive I don't know if you drive or fly, but you come And we appreciate your time and your effort to come. You are being heard by this commission, and your envisionment of law enforcement in Louisiana, I will speak for myself, but I think it speaks for the rest of the commission as well, is the same. We don't want anybody to be fearful or concerned because a state trooper or any law, we don't have authority over any of the other law enforcement agents, or any law enforcement agency stops behind them. Everybody should be more relieved than afraid. Now, if they did something, obviously, if I'm speeding, I'm gonna be a little anxious too because I know I just got caught, but you know what I mean. They should, no one should have a fear of law enforcement doing something inappropriate in that circumstance, and we have that same vision that you do, and we appreciate your comments.
One last point.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, since it's been 4 years yesterday, since Ron was killed.
And I know it's still 4 years is like yesterday.
Like yesterday,
and so far
yeah.
as your family is concerned, and I totally appreciate that and understand. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to acknowledge that we know what you. I don't. Let me rephrase it. I don't know what you're going through because it hasn't happened to me. It hasn't happened to my family. But every day I try as best I can to try to appreciate what you and your family.
Yeah. But it just feels like since Ron was killed, these guys, they're on leave or retired. You know, it kind of, to me, it appears that you guys are protecting these men. You know what I'm saying? Oh, let's just put them on leave with pay, without pay. Remember, I was here, back in January, and I couldn't believe that we were questioning whether or not we should pay these men. Yeah, they worked for the personal time off, but when you do bad, you need to be punished for it. And putting them on leave is not the answer. I mean, it doesn't show that they're getting punished for being part of a crime. You know? So even though, like, you guys you're saying within your powers and your ability, can you guys come together and say, okay, we need to amend whatever constitutional right and get these guys off the force? I mean, why do you want them on to eventually retire if they don't get fired? That's what bothers me. You know, and then you look at Tennessee, other states, they're doing the right thing. They're cleaning up. You know, they're doing what they can to get the community's trust right away. To say, hey, we're going to indict, file charges, and put these guys in prison. And until I see Corey York in handcuffs and shackles like he had my brother, and John Clary, then I'll feel good about it. I don't care about no check. You know what I'm saying? Then I'll feel like, come on, guys. It's safer now because we got those 2 men off, or whether it's 3. You know, we got them off the streets in Louisiana. Then I'll feel good about, you know, the public safety here.
Might I suggest this to you, Ms. Hardin? I would love to have, and maybe other members of the commission would love to have us sit down where we can talk about some ideas. I mean, you can't accomplish that in a meeting situation like this, but where we could sit down and talk about some ideas. So why don't you get in touch with Mr. Hanneman, and and I know it's inconvenient, we can do it by Zoom, however it's
No, in person is fine.
And let's set some time to sit down and talk in person about ideas on ways that we can maybe improve our situation.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's all.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you for you guys' time. Appreciate it.